From being hyped for the Khamzat Chimaev vs Paulo Costa showdown at UFC 294, to the Boers promising to make his opponent cry on the night of action, here's how Sean reacted to the exciting middleweight bout announcement. Despite a rocky 2023, O'Malley is glad things are finally turning around for Costa. Believe it or not, a while back, Paulo Costa actually parted ways with the promotion, calling out UFC boss Dana White for hugely underpaying his fighters. There were talks of him facing the dominant Robert Whittaker, but those fell out as well after the Eraser demanded $500,000 for the fight. His MMA career looked pretty dark, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought he'd probably end up making the shift to exhibition boxing or something. But considering how he's managed to land a high-profile fight against Khamzat Chimaev, Sugar Sean O'Malley is in awe of how quickly things have turned around for him. And what's even more interesting is, Costa was actually supposed to fight Aliskerov just 2 weeks after Dana announced his next bout against the Swedish mixed martial artist. O'Malley thinks his fight against Ikram would have been extremely tough, but in terms of sellability, he's definitely going to have a better night now, since the Khamzat bout is not only the more exciting matchup, but it'll do much better numbers as well. As for Costa, Sugar thinks he's in for a real challenge, because when you think about it, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Chimaev is a character. He's loved by fans all over the world, but at the UFC, well, let's just say he's feared by many. But if the Eraser is able to become the first man to beat him, he could shoot up the rankings and actually manage to land a title shot, reviving his hopes of becoming a UFC champion. Also, for everyone doubting the Swede's move up to middleweight, O'Malley thinks he's made the perfect decision. Whenever a fighter moves up a weight class, there's usually just one main concern, and that's the size difference. Remember when Adesanya moved up to light heavyweight and suffered his first professional loss to Blachowicz? Well, a lot of fans believe that's going to happen to Khamzat as well. Since Costa happens to be one of the hardest hitters in the middleweight division, there's absolutely no way the Wolf will be able to withstand that damage. But that's not what Sean thinks. He believes Khamzat is here to stay, and once he moves up to the middleweight division, he'll have no trouble maintaining weight since he's used to carrying that extra muscle. I mean, even in his last fight against Holland, that bout was at catchweight, and that's because Chimaev was about 7 to 8 pounds over the limit. Sugar also thinks the Swedish mixed martial artist will look very good at middleweight because he can use all that weight to dominate his opponents in the ground game. So even though guys like Paulo may have a size advantage over him, it won't make too much of a difference, since the Boers can just cash in on that additional body weight and throw him down. Plus, I'm not sure about other opponents, but as far as the Eraser goes, Khamzat is miles ahead in the ground game. Well, a lot of fans believe that's going to happen to Khamzat as well. Since Costa happens to be one of the hardest hitters in the middleweight division, there's absolutely no way the Wolf will be able to withstand that damage. But that's not what Sean thinks. He believes Khamzat is here to stay, and once he moves up to the middleweight division, he'll have no trouble maintaining weight since he's used to carrying that extra muscle. I mean, even in his last fight against Holland, that bout was at catchweight, and that's because Chimaev was about 7 to 8 pounds over the limit. Sugar also thinks the Swedish mixed martial artist will look very good at middleweight because he can use all that weight to dominate his opponents in the ground game. So even though guys like Paulo may have a size advantage over him, it won't make too much of a difference, since the Boers can just cash in on that additional body weight and throw him down. Plus, I'm not sure about other opponents, but as far as the Eraser goes, Khamzat is miles ahead in the ground game. Yep, it's true, people. Despite being the one to move up a division and fight a guy much bigger than him, it's the undefeated Swede who's going into this fight as the clear favorite. And I know a lot of you are probably confused how that's even possible, but let me make things simple for you. See, if Chimaev comes in with the same old game plan, Costa won't even stand a chance regardless of his advantages, because once he's on the ground, it'll be easy work for his opponent. But don't be mistaken, the odds don't mean it's not going to be a tough battle. Khamzat will really have to step it up, because even though he's had some tough fights at welterweight, this is probably the biggest fight of his career, because if he wins this, a title fight is almost guaranteed. But there's actually going to be some pressure on Chimaev. He's usually very relaxed, but considering how these guys have history, the Boers might just be feeling the heat. Their beef isn't just limited to social media. These guys have actually had an in-person scuffle, with several men having to contain the Wolf from taking on Costa right there and then. Now, if you ask me, I'd say Paulo was the aggressor in this situation. He had been taking swipes at the undefeated fighter for the longest time now, sharing memes and hilarious videos on social media. So when both of them finally came face to face, Khamzat probably asked him to do all that to his face, leading to a heated situation. You can clearly see in the video how Costa is laughing and taunting the Swede, while Chimaev is being held back by 6 guys. And since the Eraser clearly got the better of him in that situation, Khamzat will probably be feeling the heat going into this battle, because not only does he need to win it to keep his title hopes alive, but he also has a point to prove that he's better than the Brazilian. Also, this will be the first time fight fans actually see him under some pressure, because before this, there's never been a moment where it felt like he didn't have things under control. He's always been super calm and composed inside the octagon, but when it comes to Costa, I think the Eraser is definitely starting to get on his nerves. He's even issued a call-out, claiming the wolf has nowhere to hide now. When the fight was first announced, Costa didn't even waste a second and immediately called out Khamzat, claiming there's no way he can duck him now since the fight is official. And honestly speaking, I find that a bit hard to believe, because the last person to run away from a fight is the Boers. He has that anytime, anywhere attitude, and you don't see that often at the UFC anymore. But yeah, Paulo has already issued the first call out, and even though it's just a part of his mind games, Chimaev seems like he's feeling the heat because he's never been this quiet. He did respond to the Eraser recently, but it's like he's on the back foot in all of this. We'll only find out whether that's true in October. But as of right now, the Brazilian has found a nice pain out, as he continues to push the idea that all Chimaev has done in the past is weight bully his opponents. And now that he's finally stepped up to fight the big boys, he's going to be given a real shock as he finally takes on someone his own size. Chimaev, on the other hand, is pulling off a Dricus do Plessis, as he calls out Paulo Costa for not being a Brazilian. What is even going on? I mean, I thought fighters would learn a lesson after watching DDP and Adesanya get bashed. Now, he didn't exactly challenge his heritage or something. All he said was Brazil loves him, and not Costa. And when they're finally fighting at UFC 294, he's going to make him cry and beg for forgiveness. Well, that's classic Khamzat for you. His callouts have always been deadly, and after hearing them, I once again feel confident that he's gonna go into this fight with the same killer attitude. Because being influenced by your opponent is one thing, but the Boers? Well, while he promised to make his opponent cry at UFC 294, he says it makes no difference for him because it's just another day at the office, and Costa is just another fighter who he has to beat to grab the paycheck. So, from the undefeated Swede vowing to make his opponent beg when they fight, to the Boers eager to see this battle unfold, that's how the bantamweight title contender reacted to Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev.